Our Around the World segment tonight, like we've seen several times since November 8th brought the election of Donald Trump, President Obama is again inserting his opinion and his commentary into the policies of the upcoming administration. Case in point, on the campaign trail, then candidate Trump promised to tear up the disastrous Iran nuclear deal and perhaps renegotiate new terms. Obama says that's a mistake. He continues to push the false narrative that the deal has made us and the world a safer place and claims Iran has been compliant. Now Iran is echoing our president, saying they will refuse to renegotiate any terms of the deal. Joining me now, former U.S. diplomat Jim Jatras. Jim, good to see you.
Hi, Liz. Good to see you.
All right, Jim, give me your take on this. So Iran has said that the new U.S. administration, of course, referring to President-elect Trump, will not be able, and that's a direct quote from them, will not be able to abandon the agreement. Nuclear talks with America are over, they said. We have nothing else to discuss. What's your take on this?
Well, during the campaign, there were several of the Republican candidates that said, I will tear up the Iran deal on my first day in coming into office. Donald Trump was not one of them. He said it was a bad deal. He said that the Obama administration got taken to the cleaners, that we gave all this money for Iran. We didn't get anything back. But he never said he would tear it up. He said he would police it, and he would be on top of them and make sure it was very, very strictly enforced. And like with many of the things, whether we're talking about trade deals like NAFTA, he said, I want to come back and take another look at this. Let's see what he will do about that. But I think he understands as a businessman, sometimes a bad deal is what's on the table, and you deal with it as it is and figure out a way to move forward.
Right, because I think you can do that without ruining your own credibility or the credibility of your nation. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, Jim, but I think if he uses that tactic, if he just polices this contract down to the letter of the law here, he actually has a power position at the table to renegotiate the terms.
Sure, and it throws the ball back into the Iranians' court, because when all is said and done, look, we have lots of issues and problems with the Iranian government, but this was not supposed to deal with them. It was supposed to deal with one issue: are they going to build a nuclear device? And if they are willing to abandon that, if they do want to get back out into the world community, and this deal does involve the Russians and the Chinese and the Europeans and so forth, that's really up to them. If they want to go for a crash program to build a nuclear bomb, yes, there will be consequences, and there will be very bad ones.
Right, and they seem not to be too concerned with that. But I'm glad you brought up consequences, because President Obama, I mean, this is not the best color for the United States, I don't think, to have our president agreeing with Iran's government here. But Obama warned that there would be much worse consequences if we do try to renegotiate this deal in any way. And Jim, I guess I got to be blunt here. What kind of consequences is he talking about?
Who knows? To start with, there's a dispute resolution mechanism within the deal.
Right, and Iran has refused to even go to that portion, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, and as far as I know, we haven't asked for it either. And they have accused us of not following through on lifting some of the sanctions. But they have not asked for that resolution dispute mechanism. So right now, I think there are, let's say, issues around the edges where one side or the other saying you're not sticking to the deal, but they haven't taken it to the next step. So I still think we're within, broadly speaking, what generally was agreed to by all the countries involved.
Right, it's just an agreement between two parties who don't like each other, so they want to do a bunch of finger pointing. Jim, let me ask you about this. So the IAEA, they're obviously the atomic oversight agency here. They say that Iran has been compliant with the terms of this deal in the sense that they just recently removed hundreds of centrifuges that were used to enrich uranium. But in my opinion, and I want to get your take on this, but it's a little bit of a misrepresentation, because yes, they removed hundreds of them from that particular location, but there are still thousands left right there.
That's right, but they have also shut down a lot of reactors, and I guess this is one of those things where the technical specialists are going to say whether or not they're roughly compliant or not. Neither you nor I are a nuclear technician, and I think that these people probably understand better than we do. And they are basically technocrats, and I think their judgment does mean something.
Right, without a doubt. I don't contest anything that you just said. I guess I don't trust Iran. I don't trust their intentions. I don't trust their ability to hold themselves accountable. And the fact that they're still storing these centrifuges, they haven't destroyed them, they haven't sent them anywhere else. They just moved them to a different location and claim they won't use them there, and that the stipulations in this agreement only says that they can't use these particular centrifuges at this particular location for a limited amount of time, 15 years. I mean, that doesn't seem to me that the United States came out on the good side of that deal.
Again, Liz, I'd probably disagree with you a little bit. 15 years is an eternity in international politics. If we're talking about something as serious as a nuclear confrontation. I'll take 15 years if I can get it, and then we worry how things look 15 years from now.
All right. Well, let me ask you this then. Do you trust them not to use these centrifuges, or not to use the ones that are still in that mountain storage facility?
No, of course not. Of course not. This is where the government, and especially the United States, the Trump administration, is going to have to sit on them and make sure we demand assurances of compliance with what was agreed to.
Right, and I guess we'll have to wait and see, although I like I said, I still feel very skeptical about the oversight because we gave so much of that up when we did enact this deal. But Jim, let me ask you about this. There are 23 former U.S. government officials that are right now calling on President Trump, once he's inaugurated, to work with Iran's opposition here. It's actually a group out of the country that Iran has said are terrorists, but these government officials say, no, this is legitimate opposition to Iran. You should work together to try to, I don't know if they're advocating for the downfall of the Iranian government or just to infiltrate at some point to address the human rights abuses that's happening there.
Liz, this group is called the National Council of Resistance of Iran. It's basically a front for the Mujahideen-e-Khalq, the People's Mujahideen group. They're a Marxist Islamic terrorist group. They were allied with Saddam Hussein. Frankly, they're horrible. And I'm not going to question the motives of the people who signed on to this letter. But Donald Trump has to make a decision. He said no more regime changes, no more nation building. If we want to have a regime change in Iran, which is essentially what this letter is calling for, if he wants to drop $1 trillion or $2 or $3 or $5 trillion down the tube, like George Bush did, going after Iraq, a much smaller country, which Donald Trump has said the worst decision the United States has ever made, he can ruin his presidency, just like George Bush ruined his, and we'll have somebody 10 times worse than Obama replace him after a mistake like that. I think Donald Trump needs to think about where his priorities are. If he wants to make America great again, that means you deal with the fact there are troublesome countries out there like Iran, but regime change and going down that road of his last Republican predecessor, I think would be a terrible mistake.
Right, and I guess that'll be very interesting to see because some of the people who signed this letter, some of these former government officials are actually part of the Trump administration, Rudy Giuliani being one of them. And we know that Trump does look to Rudy Giuliani for advice. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. Jim, thank you so much for weighing in on this. It's always great to talk to you.